Hi, everyone. Sean here from Unicorn Ventures. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today on Unicorn Ventures, we're sitting down with two extraordinary innovators reshaping the future of respiratory health, which is something that's truly close to my heart. Ian Brown, a seasoned strategist who's helped hundreds of teams turning early ideas into real commercial outcomes, and Anya Jones, a world-class computational biologist turned CEO who's leading the charge in predicting asthma risk before a child is even born. Together, they're building, I want to get this right, Respiradigm? Somebody correct me.
Respiradigm.
Respiradigm. That's so much easier to say. A venture with the potential to change millions of lives. This is a conversation about bold ideas, disciplined innovation, and the courage to take science out of the lab and into the real world. Ian, Anya, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I have to ask this question. We're going to jump into your whole backgrounds because, unlike some of the other podcast interviews, your business and what your mission and vision and everything you're looking to try to achieve was actually born out of university studies and so forth. So it's a slightly different take on I have an idea, what do I do with it? How do I secure funding? Who's my mentor group? This is a systematic approach to what you built. So, first of all, Anya, I have one question for you. What is computational biology or biologist?
Yeah. So literally, if you take it apart, there's two words to it. So there's a computational, something with computer or computer science, and the other side is biology, and you bring those two together. So it's analyzing data that comes out of a lab or biology data with a computer and modeling the data to find things, patterns in the data that you wouldn't find otherwise.
And where did you start your journey? Because I had to look at your background, and I got to say, I don't know if anyone's ever said this to you, but looking at everything you've done, the research and the missions and the vision and purpose of what you're leading, I felt kind of bad about myself. I wasn't doing enough for the human race. You've been at this since day one. What is in it inside of you that's actually driven you to go after such worthy causes?
Well, it goes back to, well, actually having a personal story as well, really. So my brother had asthma. I remember, every winter him sitting with an inhaler and coughing and basically sitting at the kitchen table and having a problem. And then, funnily enough, my son also being, hospitalized with asthma-like symptoms and wanting to understand why do some people get asthma and why others don't get asthma and allergies as well, because asthma and allergies go hand in hand. So being curious about it, always wanting to know more, and that's what makes a scientist as well, being curious.
I love the curious mind. I myself have suffered asthma. My daughter has too. But instead of going out and seeking the answers, I just, went out and got medication and kind of draw the line there. So thank goodness there's people like you. And Ian, you've partnered up together. Now you've coached over 350 teams across astronomy, medicine, AI, and everything in between. What's the one misconception about innovation that you wish every founder investor would let go of?
What do I wish they'd let go of?
Misconception.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I often think about what one of the things you said to me before we started talking, and something that I know you're passionate about is I want to make sure that we understand the person with the problem. Who is the
Mm.
person with the problem, and have a deep understanding of what they want in the form of a solution, and then design whatever the science is or whatever the solution is or the idea is, make sure it's designed to fit the person that has the problem. So it's kind of like, in some respects, let go of the detail that you've got in your mind for a little while and just spend some time in the problem space and the people space, and then come back to the detail and make sure it all fits together.
I love that. And you've built products that have literally changed lives from asthma prevention to, say, for orthopedic surgery. How do
Mm.
you decide for yourself about which worthy causes to go after, or more worthy of you dedicating years of your life into the study?
It's a really good question, but and it's anchored in what I just said, and it's anchored in what you do. Like it's thinking about the problem space, thinking about the people.
Mm.
So the orthopedics company Rex Ortho is one where I could see the vision of the founders of the technology. And I said, okay, well, let's go and talk to some orthopedic surgeons and make sure we're actually building something they want. And so I was actually on my way to London for a personal trip, and I reached out to a couple of surgeons I knew in London, and I bought them a coffee, and I said, "What do you think of this idea? Is this something you would want?" And I got a really good understanding, and they kind of gave a guidance to me as to in what situations would they want it, and in what situations would they not really kind of see a benefit from it. So I'd say I take a deep dive into whether this is actually something people want.
Yeah. And how many people would be impacted? I guess there, for some people thinking about the business benefit or the return on investment, you might have a slightly different list of how many lives could this impact the change of as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Great. Um, Anya, you and Ian are building something genuinely ambitious here. Can I ask, how did this partnership come together?
Ian,
Yeah. Yeah. So probably the best way to say it, because for me, it started just slightly before Anya. In that Anthony Bosco, who's a researcher that Anya did her PhD under. Anthony and I were at a workshop, and he started a conversation with me over coffee, and he told me a little bit about what his vision was for how asthma could be resolved around the world. And it was a really intriguing conversation. And through Anthony and his kind of vision, he introduced me to James Reed, and then introduced me to Anya. And I started to see these three scientists that have got a really grip on the detail, and they've actually spent time talking to customers. And I thought this is pretty exciting what they can see, because I didn't realize that asthma had a genetic and an environmental element. And what they told me about the mouse studies that they've done and what kind of is going on in the lab, and how, there's happy mice that are actually benefiting from some of the interventions that they're testing.
That's incredible. You've gone from curiosity to actually implementation testing. You've come across Ian and gone, "Oh, I love what they're doing. They're actually spending time talking to the people that are affected, running their own, um, I guess, computational models and working out what's happening there." But what was it that brought you guys together to go, "All right, we're going to take this further into a company. It's not just testing and so forth." What was that journey like from the very beginning?
Yeah, so there's a real gap in the funding pathway. So there's some inventions, like it started with a blood test that Anthony and James had developed. Anya was involved in that, and they said, we'd like to commercialize this because it will provide parents an understanding if their child's at risk, like from birth. So a blood test gives you a readout from birth whether your child's at risk.
Does
But
that take in consideration environment and genetics or just the genetics?
well, it's probably a question for Anya, but
um, So yeah, the way it works is, it's based on, a study was done on umbilical cord blood, so that which was taken, banked soon after birth, and then doing a stimulation test. So we're actually looking at the immune cells at that point in time at birth. How are they reacting to a immune stimulant? And based on that, there's certain sweet genes are being switched on and off, and there's a certain pattern emerging, and then modeling that to be able to see, okay, and afterwards looking, did that child actually develop asthma, yes or no? So doing that blind first, looking at, can we, based on that pattern, figure out, is there a pattern? And then afterwards looking it up and actually seeing, yes, that child did develop asthma at 5 years and 10 years. So it's based on blood that was banked at birth.
That's incredible. Walk me through how your experience in education made that technically possible? What were some of the elements that you and your team, and I'll say right now, when I say you, I'm referring to your whole team and everyone whose
Yes.
efforts went into has gone into
Yeah.
this. But what are the key elements that you were required to have and possess to actually make this technically possible?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's based on decades of research by ourselves and other teams globally. And what we are particularly strong here in Western Australia is our birth cohort studies. So, where parents and or children were recruited from birth or whilst the mum was still pregnant, and the child has been followed some throughout life and generations even, and having a lot of data on all kinds of aspects, which has really driven that part, and then the exponential rise in technology as well, what we've been able to do. So computational biology, go back 10 years, 20 years. Well, actually 20 years, it probably didn't exist yet as such, the way we use it now,
Mm.
where maybe a biostatistician did some analysis, but now it's a whole new field. And if you can understand the biology and know how to analyze the data and speak a computer language as such, it's another language, really. Bring those two together, you can, and understanding the immunology as well. So you need to understand the immunology, the biology. There's a lot of components that come together to bring us to the point of what we can do today.
And I guess with AI and how it's moving so fast, that must make you really excited about what's around the corner and what you can do now.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, there's things possible which we can't, or some of them we can't even imagine yet. But plugging them in, I mean, what I've seen from other researchers in Perth, what they're doing with AI already is it's amazing.
It's
So,
interesting
yeah.
when you say what excites us, because we got really excited about the blood test, and we looked at how can we fund this, and there's grants and so on, but at the end of the day you need some equity funding. But we took a dive that was even deeper than that, and we said, well, okay, the blood test is one thing. You can tell parents if their child's at risk, but what are they going to do about that? Like what do they do then? And we kind of workshopped it and said, okay, well, they need to use an intervention, which was something that could train the child's immune system to be stronger than what it is today, and to take a trajectory away from asthma. So we started workshopping and brainstorming that, and we identified there's 3 centers of excellence around the world, and they're all working for decades, as Anya said, on various things. And so we started talking with some researchers at the University of Arizona, and then we started talking with some youth researchers at the Helmholtz Munich, which is a prestigious institute in Munich, obviously. And they're working on therapies for adult asthma, and they're working on therapy for children to train their immune system away. And we got really excited about the work that they're doing, because our blood test would have then a therapy to use if you had the blood test.
Yeah.
And then we got talking about the fact that it would actually be valuable to everyone involved, the guys in Munich, the guys in Arizona, ourselves, if we could bring this all together. So we've brought together all of the teams, we've brought together all of the patents, and we are now, Respiradigm is now the commercialization arm of the asthma projects in Munich, the asthma projects in Arizona, and the work being done here in Perth. And so
Wow. Okay.
we are beyond excited. It's kind of like we are now at a whole different stratosphere.
Yeah.
And so the blood test was the impetus to get going, but
Mm.
now we have 5 patent families. We have an app, we have therapeutics programs. We are a therapeutics startup. So think of, I think we can be bigger than CSL. Like, we can be a huge pharmaceutical company. And it's all about how do you fund that? Like, this is an amazing idea, and this amazing team that we've brought together, and we've signed some amazing contracts, and everyone's working together now. But how do you fund that? That's my next job.
Well, okay, because that was going to be my next question. Well, in actual fact, I was going to ask, how did you structure the company? Because you look like you've achieved and you are achieving so much. And what you've just explained to me is by having those strategic partnerships, you've created a pathway from birth to managing the curve away. So
Yep.
I love that
Yep.
because I believe in strength in numbers through partnerships.
Yep.
But yeah, the question I did have is how does that as a company become sustainable? How do you de-risk any
Yep.
funding that you're
Yep.
going after?
And
De-risk the vision enough for your investors?
yeah, I think these are critical questions. So, at the end of the day, the most valuable things in life are people. And it's the people, the teams, the knowledge, all of that comes together if you include the people and you bring them together. So we've provided equity to the institutes. We've agreed on royalties. We've agreed on various things that make every relationship a win-win.
Hmm.
So we are literally combining everyone together for the best outcome for the whole. And by doing that, you know, what if I take Munich as an example? They come in with their patents, their IP, all of their knowledge, their teams, their momentum, their lab work over the last 2 decades. Like everything is included, and they want to be part of us, and we want to be part of them. They have a large number of tests that they're doing to validate their lead compound for adult asthma. So the first product that they will make is a product for adults that have asthma already, and it will be a better product than the Ventolin or other products that are on the market. That and people will benefit from that. So, but they have a range of tests and studies that follow the normal pharmaceutical development pipeline, which de-risks, and de-risks. But I've got to say, this product is actually derived from farm dust. So if you go back to the original seminal work that was done with the researchers in Arizona and Munich, they have studied Amish populations and Hadarite populations and normal American populations, and they've demonstrated that the Amish do not have asthma.
Yeah,
And
right.
they've asked the question, why is this? What is going on that the Amish don't have asthma? And what
And
they
just important to sorry to take over here.
yeah.
What's important to note is that asthma, it's a complex disease. So you have genetics is important, you have the environment and viral infections, so viruses. But in comparing Amish and Hutterite populations in the US, they have the same genetic background. They immigrated from an area in I think southern Germany, Austria, Switzerland potentially. They have the same genetic background, so it's not due to the genetics. So that's important. We can exclude that component. And what's different is they both live traditional lifestyles, no electricity, and so forth, but the farming ways are different. So the Amish still go with a horse and cart, how they do their farming. The Hatterites have embraced the new technologies, tractors, and so forth. And there's something there that's what's different. And the researchers have deep dived into that and have had a look there and found that it's something in the dust, it's something in the environment. Specifically, it's something in cow dust. So if you have a farm with sheep, that protective effect doesn't exist. It's not there. You have to have cows. It's something about cows, something in the dust.
Hmm.
Um, uh, on cow farms. So, I mean, ideally we would say, okay, everyone go back to the way we used to live, or we will have a cow in our backyard. But that
Or
doesn't,
in your lounge room might be
yeah,
better.
that is a tricky way forward. So, what else can we do? We've identified, or they have identified, what's in that dust. What is that protective compound? So we can, and they've synthesized that. So that is something. So instead of everyone having a cow,
Yeah.
you can.
What I want to add to that, because this is super exciting, because it's science that's found in nature.
Mm,
So it's, let's say it's in principle safe and effective. And so, of all the things you could take to a clinical study, it's probably the safer one. So it's kind of de-risking itself. Now, the guys in Arizona did some amazing early work on isolating some of the compounds. The guys in Munich have done some amazing work on isolating some of the compounds. And bringing these together brings all of that knowledge together. So, you know, rather than kind of having some elements in Munich and some elements in Arizona and even some elements in Perth, it's a combined work that's going on now that really brings the best out of all of that.
I love that Trinity arrangement they have. And we interviewed a mutual friend, Jordan Green, AM, yesterday, and he's talking about the Angel Network and how that frees up people's times, allows them to focus on their particular areas of strength and benefits and so forth. And that's exactly what you've done. You've taken a problem in its total lifespan and split into three parts, and you're all running in your own lanes, but working together. Is that a company structure, or is it more of a partnership agreement? Is it an understanding? How did you? How do you structure something like that?
Yeah. So I have a mind for how investors will want to see it to make it investable, and I
Hmm.
have a mind for what the institutes will need to sign off on it and have a win-win kind of arrangement. So it's all, the nucleus is Respiradigm, and the shareholders invest into Respiradigm, and then Respiradigm has exclusive licensing agreements with the institutes
Gotcha.
for each of the patent families and each of the other copyright that wraps around it. So it's in principle a one company that has exclusive licensing arrangements and then investment into it.
Isn't that an interesting structure? That you can have a company, so essentially you're the hub of all information.
Mm-hmm.
Are you building anything, or are you more just bringing the learnings to the forefront and helping everyone grow? Help me understand that business model a little bit more.
Yeah. So you could do various things, and we could choose to make decisions in different directions.
Hmm.
But the guys in Arizona already have their momentum. They have relationships, they have labs, they have their own kind of work. They have contractors around them. The same in Munich. They have their labs, they have the momentum. They have like 7 or 8 people working on this. So, rather than choosing to go and do it in Perth with our own startup lab, to de-risk it and for a win-win in the true sense, we invest into Munich and we invest into Arizona. And then, manufacturing isn't set up yet. So we plan to invest in a manufacturing facility in Perth because that's something not contemplated by Munich or Arizona at this stage.
Yeah, not
So,
on the roadmap.
if you think about sovereign risk and all the things that the government thought about during COVID, we're building a world-class manufacturing operation here to manufacture product for the clinical studies, to manufacture product for launch. Um, and it'll be the world center for a new product, which is making Australia stronger.
Yeah. And when you're in the initial instances, you're looking for funding to keep the research going and to, I guess, keep the lights on and start forming some of these relationships. So you're relying on funding, equity funding from the universities. I guess they were funding initially.
No,
No?
no. What we do is like we did a round of family and friends.
Yep.
So we literally raised about 500,000 in 2 steps over the last 18 months
Hmm.
from families and friends. So right now there's 9 shareholders. We are launching a fundraising round now to raise another 1 million. So that'll what we're hoping is that will be supported by outside investors. So it'll be the first external money. So let's call it a seed round. And we're hoping that, two or three of the key venture capital firms in Australia will support that.
Mm. When you're going through something like this, where it's the next big step, you're looking for double the amount of funding that you've got in the past, still relatively small when you consider what some companies are going after. But, if somebody came in and said, "Hey, I'll fund it all," but it was a pharmaceutical company that maybe wasn't aligned to your vision, how do you make that decision? And who's making the call within your organization about who to accept money and not from?
Sure, sure. Well, at the end of the day, money is important and we can't live without it.
Mhm.
Um, but I think our job is to make sure that we're talking to 3 to 5 or 8 different funders and we can get 2 or 3 of them to say we want to be involved.
Yeah.
So, it de-risks our effort to raise money. And one of them is going to say, look, we'd be happy to lead the round. We're going to actually ask the people that get really excited, would you lead the round? And then the others will come in as well. So, I think a VC would say they would prefer to have 1 or 2 other like-minded VCs involved. Um, we're not planning to talk to big pharma at the moment. We don't really want a large investor like that at this early stage.
This stage, yeah.
Perhaps we will later on. I mean, we do plan to raise 1 million now, 1 million in June next year, and then we plan to raise another 5 million around this time next year. So it is a number of chunks of money which are getting larger and larger.
One of the questions our audience might be asking, because they're relatively new to investing or understanding how this all works, is if you hear something like Series uh, A, Series B, or round one funding and so forth, you mentioned someone leading it. How important is that? And typically, who is that person and why do they exist and why does it matter?
It's a good question, and I've actually in my coaching suggested to a number of people over the years that they need to focus on who is the lead. So when you're doing a funding round, you tend to try and find investors that have the skills and capability to really look at your company and do the due diligence at a deep level. So what I mean by that is generally, there's some VCs that know biotech. There's the VCs that understand pharmaceutical development, therapeutics, and they would have the people that are capable of taking a deep dive into, is this real? Have they signed all the contracts? Is the development plan de-risked enough? They go through all of that. So they would be able to say to other VCs that are not so skilled, look, we can take the lead because we've got, 3 people that can do that. And you can rely on our due diligence. And you might do the same for us later with another investment where you've got more strength. So it
Mhm.
tends to be the people and the strength and the ability to dive in.
Something I only recently learned was companies, businesses within the life sciences, pharmaceuticals, and so forth, they can become very valuable, even pre-revenue, simply by going through all the milestones that you have to hit. So dealing with a venture capitalist that has experience in that, I guess they could even serve as an advisory board, or at least they know what success looks like and how well you're progressing.
I think getting a couple of the VCs involved, they've got some great skills and knowledge. I know a number of the people, and having them as an advisory board would strengthen Respiradigm immensely. So, I think it's all about people, and cash is probably the next most important part.
Mm. I, I think when it comes to health innovation, it can be really expensive path, for anyone that's gone down this. How do you balance that scientific ambition with the commercial reality? So people are important, money's important, but that discipline of balance of the scientific ambition and commercial reality, has that how does that shape the funding path?
Well, it's interesting actually because it comes back to a conversation Anya and I had very early on. Because why are we here? We're actually here to have impact, and what we're both passionate about is impact. And there's only so much that scientists can do to achieve impact in the research lab. To have impact, you actually need to commercialize something. Um, so I think having impact is the most important kind of big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
And the money will all flow if you get the impact right. Like the revenue will be there. For investors, what's important is that we have the value of the company increases over time, but also in the long term that we're a valuable company that can pay dividends. So that can only happen if we land the impact well, and we can sell a product, hopefully a product that's accessible, that's not a crazy price, people can afford it, and the profile of our product will have a low cost of goods. It will be something that we will be able to make sure is affordable. So, I think we're kind of in the right zone, and it comes down to can we execute?
Yeah. Anya, this has been a hell of a journey for you. When did you feel that you started to feel that momentum kicking in? What was an early win or signals that told you, okay, this is working. Woo, let's go.
Well, in a way, even before I we started with Respiradigm, in a way, it's like I've been in the academic setting, for many years, and university, and research is amazing. I love it. But it's a slow process. Getting grants is a slow process as well. And with Respiridigm, we have this amazing opportunity to take it somewhere, which we just don't have in, like Ian was saying, we don't have that opportunity in an academic or research setting. We need to take it out of academia and put it into a startup, and anything is possible really then.
Yeah. And this is a question for either of you. Along this journey, you undoubtedly hit some resistance along the way, whether it be scientific data outputs or funding or whatever. But what was the first big wall that you guys ran into, and how did you push through it?
Well, it's an interesting question, Sean. So, you know, if we had 4 or 5 hours, I'd describe the whole journey to you in great detail. But we have pivoted twice. Like we started with a blood test, and a lot of investors said, "Well, that's really exciting, that's interesting, but how are you going to commercialize it? And what someone else is going to be making the real money in the actual intervention. So why don't you think about having an intervention?" And then, so we've kind of been on a journey where we only had the rights to the blood test at first, and then it took a few months to build the relationships and land the contracts to actually say we've got now the rights to all of these things and we've got all these partners. So I think as we brought it all together and pivoted and so on, we need to update people we've spoken to early on and say, we told you we had a blood test. It's actually more exciting now. and we've got to kind of go back around and tell everyone, hey, this is looking really good. And so the resistance in some respects has been our own kind of making, because we've been on a journey and we've been pivoting, but we're there now. So now what we're finding is there's much more interest, which makes sense.
Yeah. So I have two daughters, and I remember signing off the umbilical cord for scientific testing and blood testing and so forth. So there's every chance that we've actually probably even been part of that. I didn't even know what it was doing. So I feel like I've got an insight now. So that's great. Um,
It's and it's great that people sign off things for research. Like some of these new inventions are things that I know are happening in labs in other areas. They wouldn't happen if people weren't so good about giving over for research.
hmm.
I mean, yeah, and I'm just thinking, I mean, my son is currently participating in a local study where they're looking at how much a particular virus, RSV, is circulating in the population because some children don't have symptoms, some do, some are hospitalized because of it, and a lot of
Mm.
those tend to get asthma later in life. And I jumped on the opportunity immediately because I thought, well, I'm the one who usually receives the samples or analyzes the samples, but actually contributing and seeing the other side as well, what that is
Mm.
like is, well, I'm finding really exciting. My son maybe is not finding it as exciting having to do a nose swab.
Well, RSV seems to have come out of nowhere in the last 12 months. It seems to be like a circular door in our family, just with everything that's been happening under our roof.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask with innovation in health, it's not just the science. You have the regulation, there's funding, there's timing, there's partners, there's people, there's just managing the workload. Which one of those tested you the most in this journey?
It's you know, the regulations are important, and I actually think they're highly useful because they help you think think thoroughly about what can this product actually do, and if you were talking with a customer 5 years from now, what would you claim that it could do, and feel that you're solid with that claim, and you're sure that that's what it can do, so people can make an informed choice and choose the right product they want. So how, if you walk backwards, how do I get to that claim? So what kind of science has to happen to make that viable? And it often is, you need to test it in X number of people. You need to prove that the endpoints of the clinical studies land uh, what you envisaged. And that needs a whole bunch of people that know how to design those studies and design the endpoints. But I think it's a complex business, but it's there for a reason, and it can generate solid outcomes. Anya reminded me a while ago, this is just in the last couple of months, that during COVID, the real magic was how scientists came together in a partnership and built the solution really rapidly. But it wasn't just the scientists that understood the biology, it was the scientists that understood the regulatory approvals, the scientists that understood what kind of claims would need to be made on a vaccine for COVID. So there was a lot of energy that went into these partnerships, which is not, it's kind of not unlike what we're doing with asthma, but at a different time and under a different kind of set of pressures. But I think it's a very good space to be in.
Would you
And I
say?
would say bringing the best minds together, the best
Mm.
brains in that sense together, that are spread across the globe, really, to be able to make something happen. Because what happens often in science is where we are working in silos, and one particular problem actually needs all expertise. You need engineering, you need physics, you need the biologists, the immunologists. You need to bring everyone together to create something that uh, with just one you wouldn't be able to make it possible. You need to bring every all the different people together.
Mm.
I think that is absolutely essential, but we do tend to be quite insular working in silos or in the business world. It's like I want to protect my IP, my idea, and feel like if I, put it out there that a competitor will run with it. When in fact, some of the biggest organizations and businesses, the biggest transformation moments is when they've partnered or found a way to work together. So is that something that COVID taught you guys, is to how to get the minds together to tackle a big problem?
It kind of opens your eyes or makes you more aware again. But I think part of the problem is that there isn't the why we do work in silos in science is because there isn't enough funding for all the research that needs to be done. So the funding is very tight. And then there's this competitive landscape because you are literally fighting to have a job in a couple of months' time or next year. And we also need more government funding to be able to support that and work together instead of a competitive environment.
Yeah. The benefit of hindsight being 2020 is you can look back on your journey and go, oh, that moment there, or we pivoted when we should have zigged or zagged. Uh,
Mm.
was there a moment that for you think, oh, we should have maybe dug a deep, better look into that, or maybe we should have gone this way? Was there any moments that stuck out for you?
It's interesting because, I often say to people in business, you don't get to do A/B testing all the time. You have to
Mm,
make a decision and run with it. And you don't actually find out if you had done something else, what would have been the outcome. So it's, I think you've got to get some smart people to workshop it, make a decision and then go for it. And
yeah.
I think we could have done things differently, but there's several instances where we didn't do things differently and we landed in a really interesting place and that leveraged something else. So it's kind of like if I had my life over again, would I do it differently? I probably would. Would it be better? Probably not.
We don't know.
I can walk a golf course in many different pathways and I can still end up with the same result.
Yeah, well, I walk more than others in the golf course, and the thing is, you never really know, do you? But one of the things I just took away is that you get a group of people together and come up with a consensus. Some people where I feel that they don't have people around them where they can at least talk through, workshop the problem,
Yeah,
tend to do nothing, which is that paralysis is worse than doing nothing. Sometimes it's you just have to push through and see what the
yeah,
result is, and
yeah.
hopefully it's not so big that you can't walk it back or go a different direction or see if there's a new opportunity.
I think, if someone said to me, you've got 5 or 6 different skills, or, you're good at this and you're good at that, and it's amazing what you've done, I would say that the only thing I'm good at is executing.
Hmm.
I know how to follow up. I know how to have conversations. I know how to then translate that into a deal, get the signatures on the paper and get moving and do the next step. So it's kind of like like I've had many rules in my life, but the mantra that really works for me these days is I don't want to regret anything tomorrow. I
Hmm.
like if there's 5 more minutes I can spend in my office just to get something done that is going to help me get the next thing done tomorrow. I don't want to arrive at tomorrow and say, I wish I had sent that email last night.
So, and you come across as someone who's, can back themselves in a high activator and maybe sometimes run with it. Anya, would you say that you're the other end of the quadrant, more with your background is more methodical, process driven, take your time to make a decision?
Probably, yes, which is why I think we work really well together because it's a really good complementary way of working and the background skill set in terms of I'm bringing the science, Ian knows all about business, and we're learning from each other. So we're constantly, literally every day, I'm learning something new from Ian, and Ian is learning another science component basically, and that works really, really well. As a team.
I
Yep.
love that because some people would look at it not complementary, but more friction when we look at behavioral styles or preferred social communication styles of individuals. You might have a driver versus an analytical, and they can rub each other the wrong way. But you're actually looking at it from how do we build a business together and leveraging each other's skills. That's
And we
great.
can we can challenge each other as well. We can both say, no, actually, we don't agree, and still sleep on it, and then come back. Actually, maybe your way was the right way. Let's try that, or vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
So
I think
yeah.
we equally do that every day as well.
Mm,
Yeah. Well, I think it's important if you have a mission or a vision or you want to make an impact and keep that as your North Star, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It's the
mm.
best idea wins. So if you can have two opposing views but sleep on it and come back and go, you know what? That's actually bang on. It's moving the ego aside. And I think
Mm.
that's where a lot of people get themselves into problems is, no, I just want to be right.
I think,
And I have to say, as a scientist, that's what I'm very aware of, and having done a PhD, is the things I don't know. There's more that I don't know than I do know, and very important to be able to say, hey, I don't know about this, or let me get back to you, or let me find the right people who do know, who have that skill set, so I can bring them on board because I can't do this all by myself. The mission we have, what we want to, the impact we want to have, we're not going to do by ourselves. So we need to be aware of what is it we need and bring those people on board.
yeah.
Awesome.
And I think like I'm quite comfortable with saying, hey, you know what I said yesterday? I'd actually like to rediscuss that because I don't think I landed in the right place.
Mm,
And I did that like 24 hours ago with Cedric in Munich.
mm.
I said, have you got 5 minutes for another Zoom? Which seems a bit silly, but I just wanted to talk it through with him. And I literally said those things to him. I don't think I got that right. So I just want to work it through again. And it turns out I was right, but it removed that doubt.
Mm.
I like using it. I feel like I didn't land it right because you still haven't bought in my idea, which means, I gotta have another pass at this.
Could be.
All right. I have a couple closing questions we'll move on to in a moment, but I just wanted to think with this power unionship that you guys have brought together and working together, what are some of the new challenges that you're preparing for? You got a round going right now, one in June, and then so forth. But what is it that you're preparing for over the next 12 to 18 months?
Um, so I'll start with people again.
Yeah.
so so we've got teams that have got momentum in different geographies. And their first language is not necessarily English. Um, we need to really work with them to understand what capabilities and capacities they've got for the next 12 months and 24 months work packages. Where are the gaps? What kind of people do we need? Do they need to be in Germany? Do they need to be in Arizona? Do they need to be in Australia? We need to build above that an administrative group that can drive all of the admin that sits with that. We need to write grants that are Australian grants. Commercialisation grants. We've got to write grants that are European grants. Thankfully, Anya speaks 3 or 4 languages, so that's rather helpful.
It helps.
Wow, that's amazing.
um, we were offered, the guys in Munich said, we can share a document with you. It's 70 pages long, although it's in German. And I said, well, okay, let me think about that. And Anya said, I can read that. Okay.
No problem. We've got it.
But
That's
we have to build the teams that manage all of this. And we have to make sure, that the risk management we touched on earlier of commercialization risk are managed well. And I know Munich already has people there that do that, but we kind of need to bring it all together and the communication of a 24/7 organization. Like the sun never sets on Respiradigm.
Yeah, because it's a problem that exists 24/7, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, that's amazing. I speak two languages, Canadian and Australian. It's basically Australian, but I just say A on the end of everything as well.
Well, I was going to say Canadian, you could be speaking Canadian French.
Yeah, we. Okay, so I wanted to ask, when people are structuring a company and reflecting from the early stages, what were the five essential elements that you absolutely need to get right? The things that were non-negotiables for building what you've built today.
Um, I
People?
guess, yeah, it's people. Um, and recognizing, like, one of the things we recognize very early on is, we need to give up some of the shares in the company to enable others to come in. And so, we're literally building something large, and we believe this is going to be very, very impactful. So, setting the culture kind of started with these conversations. And we gave up, you know, 5% equity here and 5% equity there and another 7% and what have you, because we can see the value of what we're building and what impact we can have. I think sometimes people get caught up on not giving up, you know, like you said before, holding on to what they've got.
Yeah.
But your vision has to be something bigger. And
Bigger than yourself and for the greater
yeah,
good. Mm.
yeah. And like I think Anya and I will need to evolve over time. Like right now we've got our sleeves rolled up and we're doing almost everything from the admin point of view. But we need more people and then we'll need to delegate. And you know, so one of the big things we'll have to get really good at is delegating and making sure that we've got the right people to delegate to. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but there's a number of things that have gone on in the last 12, 18 months that have really set a great culture already.
Yeah. I think you have. And if for the audience, I'd say people, culture, structure, funding. And if there was one more, probably I think maybe responsibility.
Yep.
Something that's beyond ourselves, but also knowing that everything you do is going to be under the microscope because you also have world partners as well, and it's a global problem you're looking to solve. So I think that a sense of responsibility that you're taking on for yourselves could be weighted, but it also could be uplifting for yourselves as well.
Yep. I agree.
Okay. Red flags. If there was, what's one thing that you're just looking out for in your business every day that if it pops its head up, you're like whack-a-mole, you're just gonna knock it down, or just what's the one thing that really concerns you? Each. One for
So,
you, Ian, one for you, Anya.
so it probably, you know, I, I'm a serial entrepreneur and I've got a kind of a work ethic and elements of things I focus on to make sure that we don't make mistakes. And we did a couple of hours this morning on budgeting for the next 24 months. And we've got inputs from everywhere that we can possibly get to make sure that there's nothing we've forgotten to include in our budget. And that I do it in a lot of detail. Anya does it in a lot of detail with me. And we end up with a high degree of confidence that there aren't red flags in the budget. There's no financial risks. We're not going to miss anything. Um, but that would be a whack-a-mole if we discover something that we've missed that we haven't factored into the budget. So we put some contingencies in there to kind of cover those things. But I'm constantly, if someone says, "Oh, we need to do this as well," within a microsecond, I'm like, "How much is that? And when's it going to happen? And where do I put it in my budget?" And so
Do we
my
have
budget is
contingency
something I
plan
look
for?
at
Yeah.
every single day.
I hear that like a lot of successful people, they're just on top of their numbers every day. They're doing their own accounts every week. Sunday night, that's their time. And it's like a lot of people choose TV, but no, I'm balancing the books. It's the
Yeah,
numbers are everything.
yeah,
And it's important, especially in a startup, because the funds are limited. So you really do need to know where you're at.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to that. I want to hear your one whack-a-mole,
Mhm,
and then yeah, I want to talk about runway because that
mhm.
is a really in financial responsibility. So what's your one whack-a-mole?
Red flag actually goes back to people because I mean, we've been talking to hundreds of people in the last, 18 months, whether or not that's for various aspects, such as and potential investors as well. And I think that's what really important when we talk to people. You get a certain feeling of does it fit or not? And for example, investment, someone could come with a very large sum and wants to invest, but that doesn't mean that's the right investment because it's not only the money they want to help. What expertise do they have? And with some people, I found some people it's like straight away, yes, I can see us working with them or not potentially. And I really actually going with a gut feeling where I've had that feeling as well. It's like it doesn't quite sit right with me. Let's have a chat. We had a chat, and at some point, yeah, we were all at kind of at the same came to the same conclusion, yeah, maybe that's not quite the right type of investment we want.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I was having this conversation with someone this morning is I'd rather take the extra time just to not force a decision,
Mm,
and just really explore, because the best outcome you can have is both parties going, I don't think I'm right for you. I don't think you are either,
mm,
or that we're right for you, rather than take the money or force a decision and
yeah,
then have that awkwardness that inevitably is going to show its head anyway down the
mm,
line.
yeah.
I love that. Okay, so runway and financial responsibility. One of the misconceptions I see with some business owners out there, I want to get a startup and I'm going to do this raising and it's just going to be popping bottles of champagne every night. And, it's a bit more like a frat house than a business. But I see that as a huge misconception because the dawn of day is, oh, geez, that's drying up really fast. So how do you deal with that pressure of, and I might lean on you because you've had so many experiences with coaching
Mm.
and developing and running and setting up businesses. What's the tone? What's the discipline? And what's the communication to the team to really make sure that that financial responsibility understanding's laid down well? And is it exciting?
It's exciting, but I think sometimes the answer's in the label. Like when you do a friends and family round, they are your friends and family.
Mm,
And, I take that very seriously. Like in our friends and family round, my wife and I put money in, my wife's cousin put money in, a number of people that are very personal, cherished relationships. And I take that really as a responsibility. Um, when the company is short of money, I have put more money in, and we're in a position to be able to do that. And sometimes some of the team members aren't in a position to do that. And sometimes I'm not, because life gets in the way. Like,
mm.
so the fact that someone can't doesn't mean they don't want to. I had a chat with a family member the other day, and they said they'd like to put more money into this round, but they're not able to. And they told me why. And I said to them, look, I don't mind at all. So I think when you're in the friends and family round in those early stages, that it is a responsible element and you need to kind of work hard on it. But even when you do
Could
a
you
seed round and you do a Series A, it's
just, sorry, I just want to ask with the friends and family, could you actually use that as a motivation? Whereas if you go to your friends and family first, you're kind of putting your back up against the wall. You have to make this work. It's like, could people be using that as a motivation to go the extra, providing they have good relationships with their friends and family and they care about them and love them?
I think so. You know, there's all sorts of elements to the way this all works. Investors aren't going to come in until you've de-risked to a certain extent, and you need to find a way to fund that. In some businesses where there's not deep research that has to be done and deep development, you can do that with cash flow. Like when I'm mentoring entrepreneurs, the very first thing I always say to everyone is if you can fund this yourself or if you can fund it through cash flow, do it. Don't raise money unless you need to. So rule one, fund it yourself, fund it through
Mhm.
cash flow. Um, only raise money to accelerate. If you've got revenue started and you can see it's working, then raise money and accelerate, get going.
Scale it up. Yeah.
But I think it does. We had, I think every member of the founding team. Well, I know we all put money in, but they've all had friends and family contribute into that first round. So I think it probably has set part of our culture, just because we feel responsible. And you're dedicating time, you're dedicating the family's kind of opportunities because it's an opportunity cost. So I think it does set the culture.
Yeah. And I cut you off there before you're about to talk about companies in Series A rounds and so forth.
Yeah. So even when you're raising money in those larger rounds, like I took one company to an IPO back in 2004, and we raised 18 million at the IPO.
Oof.
And there's hundreds of shareholders, and there's several institutions that fund into that. But at the end of the day, there's mums and dads, and there's young people with aspirations, and I I'm aware of that. It's kind of like we want to do the best, and we just keep working away at it. That was a great success, so that was great fun. But I think always remembering that personal element of who are the shareholders, they're actually people.
Yeah, I think everyone that I've interviewed so far for this podcast have all had that line is that we understand the responsibility of that. People who choosing to invest or partner with us, we don't take that
Mm.
lightly. We know that they've worked hard to give up anything, whether it be their time, focus, energy, or money. So awesome.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful talking to you today, and we usually finish up talking about an AI idea of the day, but I don't want to. I want to give this the full focus of what you guys are doing with Respiradigm.
Right.
So let's talk about anything you want to. What does the audience need to know about what else you're doing and how they can get involved and find out more?
I feel like a wiggle. I've got to say, we are truly excited. You know, we've we've been on a journey, and we've pivoted and so on. But we are super excited about what we've brought together. We're super excited for our partners in Germany. We're super excited for our partners in the US, and we're super excited for the people here. And we're going to have an impact on adult asthma. So people that already have asthma, we're going to have an impact on young mothers, young fathers that have children that are at risk of developing asthma. I think we say to each other every day, we're excited. This is actually going to have some impact.
That's wonderful. I think whenever I'm choosing who to work with and so forth, if there's not passion or excitement, I'm like, oh, I'm out. Anya, what would you like the audience to know?
Well, I mean, I actually just feel honored to be working with the people we are working in Germany and the US because they've spent, decades their life on deciphering the immune system and asthma and allergies. And it's absolutely amazing to be working with them now and taking that knowledge, those discoveries forward to something that can have a real impact. It's amazing.
I'm so glad to have you both on today, and thank you so much for being so generous with sharing your story and that hero's arc journey. And I will say hero's arc because you're doing valuable, work for that's going to help hundreds of thousands of people. So I've learned a lot today, and I know our audience will have as well. So if somebody wants to learn more about you and to get involved, what's the best way that they can contact you?
Probably LinkedIn.
www.respiradigm.
Right there. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Sean, and this is Unicorn Ventures. And thank you, Ian and Anya. It's been a pleasure
Thank
having
you,
you
Sean.
guys.
Thank you.